各位观众晚上好，欢迎收看26分钟见证实录。BC 新民主党的 David Eby 尹大卫，去年11月宣誓就任 BC 省第37任的省长，正是从因健康理由而辞任的贺锦手中接棒省长的职务。尹大卫就任后定出了100日的工作目标，并且立即以旋风式的推出一连串的改革和政策宣布。曾经担任过律政厅长及负责房屋事务的尹大卫强调，房屋、医疗、公共安全等都是他首要的工作重点。尹大卫在新春之际接受本台专访，首先谈及上任2个月来的工作进程。省长您好，首先祝您新年快乐，多谢您这次亲自来到我们的新闻部接受我们的专访。
Well, thank you for having me. It's great to be here back at Fairchild.
您已经宣誓就职 BC 省长2个月了，你之前所定下的100天的目标进展怎么样？有哪些已经做到了，又有哪些没做到，有待完成呢？
Well, we're doing a couple of things right now with the 100-day plan. British Columbians have told me that they are concerned about housing. They need an affordable place to live. They're concerned about health care. They need care in the hospitals when they need it, and they need a family doctor. They're concerned about public safety. They want to know that they're safe in their downtown cores. And they also want to make sure we're building a strong and clean economy for all British Columbians. So that's what the focus has been. And the first 100 days really focused on two things, getting financial support to British Columbians that are grappling with higher costs. So things like ICBC rates being frozen for 2 years, the credit on the BC hydro bills, affordability credits, but also setting out the foundation for how we're going to deal with these big issues going forward. Recognizing the credentials of doctors and nurses that are trained internationally so they can get to work right away. Setting housing targets for cities so that we build the housing we need for our fast-growing province. Things like that that set the path for us going forward so British Columbians know where we're going.
这2个月呢，我们几乎每天都看到您有新的计划或者拨款的宣布，这种节奏似乎是从未有过的。您为什么要这么快的将所有的计划项目密集式的推出呢？
Well, there's so much to do, and I think that most of your viewers will know, especially on those priority issues, making sure that you have the healthcare that you need, making sure that our cities are going in the right direction, people feel safe, we have a safe, affordable home for people. These are things that can't wait. And you have to work hard to show people that you're committed to these things. That's what I'm doing. That's what my team is doing. And so we're setting a fast pace, but that's because we believe these issues are very urgent and British Columbians want us to address them quickly.
有人可能会说，您的政府已经执政了5年，您是负责住房的厅长，又是律政厅长。其实所有这些问题全已经存在很久了，为什么所有的这些改变和计划，现在似乎只在一夜之间就全盘推出，而不是更早的做出呢？
Oh, wow. If people think changes are just coming now, there's been a lot happening. We've been working hard for 5 years to improve affordability for British Columbians, to make sure our economy is strong, to address issues like housing and public safety. All of this work has been happening, but it was clear to me when I was touring the province during the leadership campaign, people want us to do more. They want us to work faster, especially on these priority issues.
您上任之后，已经就 BC 省的房屋和租屋的问题公布了多项新的安排和拨款，例如将房屋厅分成一个独立的厅。您能否解释一下，您认为这些做法将如何解决到我们目前所面对的房屋问题呢？
Well, I think that, when I think about a young person trying to start their lives, they want to move out of mom and dad's place, they want to have a place where they want to start a family, or a senior that's looking for an affordable place to live. This issue is very pressing. It needs full attention of a minister, and so a dedicated housing ministry will help with that. Housing goes across a bunch of different government departments. Having a minister that's dedicated can reach into the Ministry of Transportation, reach into Ministry of the Environment, reach into the Ministry of Jobs, make sure people have the training, make sure that things like contaminated sites that are getting cleaned up so that housing can be built, making sure that the roads are built and the transit is built to support that housing, that it can all be coordinated. It's a structure, so it feels disconnected for British Columbians.
您认为 BC 省的省民实际上可以在什么时候才能够看到这些新政策的成效呢？
Well, here's the big challenge we face. So last year, more than 100,000 people chose to move to British Columbia from other provinces and from around the world. And for this year, that was a record. 50 years, we haven't seen that kind of growth. This year, we're breaking last year's records of people coming. So in order to respond to this, if we don't build more housing really quickly, it's only going to get worse. So we've said to the cities, we're setting targets with you for the housing we need. We need you to approve this housing. For the province, making sure that our permits are faster, more understandable, and we're not standing in the way of new housing getting built. To the nonprofit sector, we've given them money. We say, go out, buy old rental buildings, find opportunities to build new affordable rentals, but preserve and protect that affordable rental housing for renters right now. We've said to the development industry, work with us. We know that interest rates are going up. We know that you're thinking you're going to have to slow down on building. Don't slow down. How can we support you to keep building through this pressure we're getting from the Bank of Canada on interest rates? So we're working with everybody, for-profit, not-for-profit, municipal governments, and with the federal government. They have funds to accelerate housing construction. We'll be working with them as well, as First Nations have huge parcels of land that they want to develop for housing. So all of it about getting that housing built, all different kinds of housing, because we know it's urgent for British Columbians.
您刚刚提到这个房屋的目标啊，其实我们知道以前曾经定出过目标，但是这些目标很难实现。那现在在定这些目标有什么意义呢？
So there are two pieces to it, I think, with the housing needs studies. One was, if you didn't meet the targets before, it didn't matter. There was no consequence. But also, on the other side, there was no incentive to try to hit those targets. So we're putting both of those things in place. For the consequences for cities that we know need to grow, that are not approving the housing that we need, we're saying if you don't hit the targets, the new law allows the province to appoint someone to go in and say, we're going to start approving housing in your community. And so for a city, now they can say to their residents, look, if we don't approve the housing, the province is going to come in and make us approve it. So let's work together, let's find the areas where we want to grow. But on the other side, those cities that are approving the housing, they're building a lot of housing. Certainly cities like Richmond and Coquitlam, and I could make a list. They're saying, Burnaby, they're saying we need support. We're saying we're growing Surrey, we're growing so quickly. We need infrastructure, we need parks, playgrounds, we need walking paths, we need the things that make a community livable, and we need support from the province. So we're going to tie that funding in with communities that are growing quickly and supporting them to grow quickly. So we have the carrot, encouraging them to move faster, but we also say, you know what, if you're not hitting the targets, we're not afraid to step in to make sure that that housing is going to get built.
谈到我们的医疗危机，我们目前面对轮候时间过长，有急诊室甚至要关闭，医护人员严重加班等等。你解决这些问题的计划是什么呢？
So for the short term, to get those healthcare workers in place as quickly as possible, it'll surprise you, but there are 2,000 nurses that are waiting for approval from the College of Nurses. They have international training. They want to work in our hospitals. They want to work in our communities, but they're waiting with the college to get approved. And so we said to the college, look, we will give you the resources and the support to get those approvals done sooner. There's 3,000 more nurses that are like, I'm interested in working in BC, but I haven't applied yet. And we say to those nurses, we'll pay the fees for your exams. We'll pay your license fees to get going. We'll cover your expenses. Nurses in British Columbia that maybe stopped working as a nurse, but they want to come back, we'll pay for your upgrading, we'll pay for travel, and we're working with the college now to have a faster approvals process. It used to be up to 2 years. Our target is 3 to 5 months for those nurses to get approved, to get them into the healthcare system as quickly as possible. Same for doctors. Internationally trained doctors, now they can work underneath the supervision of a BC doctor to do what they have the skills to do and to build up their skills to do more work. We can't have healthcare providers standing on the sidelines when families need care. For the longer term, the first new medical school in Western Canada in 50 years, opening in Surrey. 600 places at UBC and other post-secondary schools to train new nurses, new family doctors, so that we have the growth that we need for our population going forward. Really important work. I talked with the Prime Minister about this issue too. I'm going to be going to Ottawa with all the premiers because they're seeing this across the country. BC has been pushing hard on this issue, and we hope to see a resolution with the federal government soon.
您将如何确保我们目前的医生和护士能够继续在 BC 省工作呢？
Yeah, that's a good question. So we're competing, unfortunately, with other provinces, but also with the United States and other parts of the world for health professionals. Everybody's looking for these health workers. And so we have a great new deal with the Doctors of BC for family doctors. It's very exciting. My wife is a family doctor. She tells me she thinks it's going to make a big difference for her friends that she went to medical school with that were thinking about being family doctors, but ended up working in drop-in centers, ended up working in hospitals or somewhere else, that they'll come back to do that long-term family practice that we all want to see them do. It's very important for us to be competitive with other provinces, but it's also important for us to bring on more doctors so that in across the country so that we're not competing with each other for these healthcare workers.
安省刚刚宣布将提出新的修订，为全国的医生、护士、护理人员打开快速就业通道。只要他们有其他省份的注册或者是持牌的资格，就可以马上投入安省的服务。您是否会考虑相同的做法呢？
If we think that's going to be a successful approach, absolutely. We know that we have those internationally trained nurses as well as nurses from across Canada, so we have the fast track process through our College of Nursing to get those nurses onto the hospital floor quickly. It's important for us, though, for British Columbia, to know that the nurses have the skills we need. We do need some kind of credential and oversight process before we just let people into our hospitals. And so that's the challenge with Ontario's announcement. I look forward to seeing how they're going to make sure those nurses meet the high standards that I'm sure people in Ontario expect, because I know British Columbians expect that too. We're not going to reduce our standards. We're going to keep the oversight, but we need to get those workers out there, and the colleges are part of the way that we do that to make sure before they go to the hospital, before they open up the family practice, that they are ready and able, and they're not running away from some other issue in their home province to come work in BC, trying to get away from disciplinary action. We need to make sure that British Columbians are safe and that they're getting the high standards of care that we insist.
了解过 BC 省长尹大卫在改善房屋和医疗等问题的方案后，休息回来，我们继续会有尹大卫的专访，听听他在2023年在其他各项议题上有什么政策方向及计划。欢迎回到节目时间。前任 BC 省长贺锦一直以来都保持着高的民意支持度。现在距离下一次的 BC 省选还有不到2年时间，尹大卫会怎样维持该党的支持度呢？面对2023年家国可能出现的经济衰退，现任的省长尹大卫计划如何带领他的政府帮助 BC 省民走出各项民生困局呢？您提过公共安全是你的重点工作之一，你认为这方面你需要做些什么来恢复省民的信心呢？
So what we can do today, we've increased funding for police across the province for the RCMP to make sure communities have the policing they need. But recognizing what's driving this, we're making sure that we're addressing mental health and addiction as well. So we're working with St. Paul's on a new model of addiction treatment. When people come into the emergency room, we have peer workers with experience in mental health that are responding to mental health calls now instead of police, which frees police up to do police work. We have a direction to our prosecutors, making sure that British Columbians can have confidence that when someone commits a violent offense, prosecutors are doing all they can under the federal law to make sure that person is not released back to the community. But for the longer term, pressing the Prime Minister, pressing the federal government, you made changes to the rules, you had good intentions, but it's not working. We need to look at it again and make sure that we're protecting Canadians, protecting British Columbians with good rules at the criminal justice system so that the prosecutors have the tools that they need to address violent offenders in our community. It's important work, it's critical work, and British Columbians expect it from us.
温哥华市府刚刚通过了振兴华埠的行动计划，省政府会提供任何支持来响应这样一个行动吗？在省级的层面，有没有任何计划去帮助华埠应对目前的挑战呢？
Absolutely. So one of the first meetings I had after being appointed Premier was a round table that we set up, invited the Mayor of Vancouver, he sat right beside me, we were working together, the merchants from Chinatown, community leaders from Chinatown, owners of legacy businesses, those old Chinatown businesses that have been around for a long time, people from the Chinese Canadian Museum and others. And the conversation was, what are you seeing in Chinatown and how can the provincial government help? And so we'll be working on a strategy with them, with the city, to make sure we address this issue. I'm glad to see the city moving on this, but it's also the downtown east side, which is right beside Chinatown. Well, I've never seen it worse. People out in the streets, sleeping on the sidewalks and structures, Random violence, attacks on women, it's unacceptable. So we will be decamping and getting those people who are sleeping on the sidewalks into shelters. We will be putting in place a longer-term plan for the downtown east side, Chinatown and Gastown to make sure that the community is safe. And then we'll be doing the work with those business leaders so that Chinatown can have a bright future. It'll take some work, but the city's there, we're there, and the federal government is also there, which is important. They're committed to this work as well.
现在的通货膨胀持续，您有什么具体的计划去帮助省民应对生活成本飙升的问题呢？
So again, what can we do today? I joined the Prime Minister for a joint announcement, provincial and federal, about cutting daycare costs in half for parents. That means hundreds of dollars a month per child for parents, thousands of dollars annually. When we freeze ICBC rates, it provides certainty to business so that businesses know what their costs are going to be. But for consumers struggling with costs, they know that they'll keep having some of the lowest car insurance rates in Canada. The hydro bill credit and the affordability credit, money in people's pockets. But going forward, we know that the cost of food is probably going to go higher because of international tensions. You have wars, you have droughts in California, one of the major exporters of food to British Columbia. How can we grow more food, process more food in British Columbia? So I asked my agriculture minister to work with farmers, to work with food processors, to make sure we're doing everything we can to grow more food in BC, for BC, process more food in BC, but also to find those export opportunities. Because if California is reducing their exports, this is a huge business opportunity for British Columbia, for us to take over some of that export business.
您会如何处理省府的开支呢？我知道您有很多的计划和行动要推行，但是这些钱从哪里来？您有没有平衡预算的计划呢？
We are in very good financial position as a province despite the global challenges that we're facing right now. Currently, we have a surplus, I'm told, in the neighborhood of, our last projection was about $5 billion. It's probably going to be higher because people are coming here, we have economic activity, economic growth. The way that we pay for these programs and other programs is only going to be through growing our economy, growing our province, growing business. And that's the exciting thing, is we're very well positioned. So for example, this morning, I was at a conference of mining exploration experts from around the world, and the week before that, the Natural Resources Forum. We have 7 mines right now proposed for British Columbia, critical minerals and metals that are needed around the world for the transition to a low carbon future, billions of dollars of investment in British Columbia. And when I talk to those business leaders, they say, we want to invest in BC, we want to have partnerships, but it takes too long to get approved. The permit process takes too long. So we have dedicated 40 additional staff to process the permits that we have right now, which include housing permits as well, and also to redesign our permit process so we keep those high standards, environmental protection, making sure First Nations are participating, but it happens so much faster because there's a huge opportunity for BC.
联邦政府承诺引进更多的移民，您如何确保 BC 省可以从中受益？与此同时，我们如何承受更多的人口对我们的各种系统，例如住房和医疗保健所增加的压力呢？
We know that a lot of people, when they look across Canada, they see the opportunities in BC. Our unemployment is near the historic lows, the lowest it's ever been. More jobs than people looking for them. Like, this is good news, so people say, I think I'm going to go to BC, but we need that infrastructure to support them. But one of the things that really frustrates me, people choose to come to British Columbia, they have skills. They could be doctors, they could be nurses, they could be engineers, they could be lawyers, and they come here and they get to move up the immigration queue because they have these skills, but then they come here and they can't use them. So I have a dedicated new minister, Andrew Mercier, the Minister for a Future Workforce, whose job it is to make sure that those workers have their credentials recognized so they can get to work. When they show up in British Columbia, they can help build our province. And if we can stay open and welcoming and use our position on the Pacific Rim to build relationships internationally, we'll be very well positioned for generations to come.
BC 呢是通往亚太地区的门户，也是对外贸易发挥着重要的作用。以目前的加中关系的情况来看 ，BC 省应该采取什么样的贸易方式和态度呢？
Well, the big advantage for us in British Columbia, we've got these massive ports, some of the biggest in North America. We're the gateway to Asia. We have family ties. all across the Pacific. People come here for education. People move here and they have relatives in different countries. Their businesses span those countries, so people have language and contacts in different countries. We need to continue to build on those relationships. Even while the federal government maintains international relations and does the work they need to do for British Columbia, we need to leverage every advantage we have to make sure that our economy is strong and continues to grow, that we use all those advantages. So what you're going to see from me and from our government is trade missions to these countries where we have strong ties, certainly across Asia, to India, and to our neighbors in the United States as well, to make sure that we are taking advantage of all of the trade opportunities for small and medium-sized business and introducing businesses to customers around the world so that our province can grow and have a strong economy. I'm really excited about the advantages. People see, they watch the news, they see the war in Ukraine, they see tensions with China. But for British Columbians, we know we have those personal relationships. We know that trade continues to grow with, for example, China, despite those international tensions. And so we need to leverage those benefits and continue that work to grow our economy. It's a very exciting time, actually.
省长，您在近期有没有到中国去访问的计划？
Oh, yes, I'd love to go to China and certainly across Asia to visit important trading partners, to all British Columbians, to Korea, to Japan, to Vietnam. I would love to go to India as well, and certainly our key ministers as well. So much I find of trade and relationships is seeing people face to face, which is also why I'm going to be going to Ottawa, because we have to meet with those federal ministers. We have to meet with the Prime Minister to remind them they live in Ontario, they live beside Quebec. It's easy for them to forget about BC when we're far away, so we have to show up and remind them.
省长，我很想问您一个私人的问题：您当了省长之后，生活上最大的转变是什么？我知道您家中有2个年幼的小朋友，你会怎样分配时间给家庭和工作呢？
I have a 3-year-old girl at home, Iva, and an 8-year-old boy, Ezra. And one of the things that I love is when I go home, it doesn't matter what my job has been. If I was in opposition or in government as a minister or now as the premier, they want me to put the phone down and play with them and have fun. And so I'm so grateful to them for that. I really enjoy that. But it is a change. So for my son, for example, I'm in the news more, so his friends are asking him about it. And he wants me to come into his school and talk to his friends at school about what my job is. So for them, I want to make sure that they're protected from some of the worst parts of politics. And that they're safe and that they're happy. But I also want them to enjoy it. There are opportunities that they have as kids. They get to see different things.
省长，我们知道到2024年会有卑诗省的省选，您怎样保证您在那个时候有更强的一个优势呢？
Well, I think British Columbians like what they've seen, which is good. But I'm the new guy. And so I have to show them where we're going and what I would like to do. I've got 18 months to show them that their priorities are my priorities and to deliver for them in ways that they can see and feel in their communities and that they know which direction we're going. That's what I want to be judged against on the election day, and that's what I look forward to.
展望新的一年，省民对您和您的政府可以有什么期望？你会为他们做些什么呢？
They're going to see the focus on those key priorities, and I didn't just make them up. These are the key priorities of British Columbians. When we're talking about housing, affordable housing, access to health care, public safety in their communities, including the downtown east side and Chinatown, and building a strong economy, these will continue to be the priorities going forward in 2024. You'll see laws introduced, you'll see trade missions, you'll see efforts in community, and we're not going to solve all the problems for the next election, but British Columbians will be very clear about what direction we're going, and they'll be able to vote accordingly.
省长在这里呢，我们感谢您接受本台的专访，也祝您新春快乐，万事如意。
Yes, thank you, and to you both as well. Yes, Happy Lunar New Year.
好了，今晚的节目时间又差不多了。观众如果对我们今天的节目有任何的意见，可以电邮给我们。我们的电邮地址是mag26@airfairchildtv.com。下星期的同一时间再见。